Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlie Herman and welcome to Charlie's Cruise Tips and Reviews. In the words of one of my favorite music groups, not my all-time favorite group, that's Slipknot, but in the words of one of my favorite groups, Stained, it's been a while. Unfortunately, as many of you know, this past year, there hasn't been much to talk about in the cruise line industry since it has been shut down by the CDC since March. Hopefully, cruising will start again soon. I am optimistic that hopefully it will start again before the end of the year. If not, I will say it probably will start by sometime in February, end of February, beginning of March. But I honestly, hopefully, believe it will start just in time for the holiday season at the beginning of December, as Carnival is trying to do. Okay, so what this video is about is going to be some of the changes that are going to come to cruising once cruising is allowed to start again in this country. Now, I do have a few that are only going to be temporary changes, which will only be here for the short term. I'm going to say about from the time cruising begins to 6 months, maybe up until around this time next year, right before Thanksgiving, and some will just be here. A couple I have listed will just be here for good. These are changes that you're going to see from now on when you cruise. So, what I wanted to say is, the first thing, as I said, some of the things will be temporary only until there is a vaccine for COVID-19, which will be widely available. Once the vaccine is widely available, and most cruisers will have to show proof of a vaccine before they cruise again once it's available. Most of the temporary changes will be gone and cruising will be back to normal as we used to know it as. Okay, so the first change, this is a temporary change. These are going to be temporary changes. The first temporary change that will be on board the ship is that people will have to wear masks in certain parts of the ship, i.e., the corridor when you're going from your room to another. In those low crowded space areas, you're gonna have to wear masks, and some other public areas such as the theater, atrium, fitness center, and spa, and some other indoor areas where food and drinks are served when you're not actually um, having anything to eat or drinking, like in between service, you will have to wear a mask. Now, on outdoor areas on the ship, like the pool area, the deck, the bar, outside bars, passing areas, like if you just like to walk outside from one end of the ship to the other, you might be recommended to wear a mask. I don't think it will be mandatory, but all indoor areas on board the ship, you're going to have to wear a mask until there is a vaccine widely available. So that's one change people are going to have to live with when you go on a cruise for the short term. As I said, as things slowly get back to normal and there's a vaccine available and people take the vaccine, these mandates you'll see start to disappear. So, as I said, it's only for the short term. Another temporary change is something we have already seen on the cruise lines that are operating out of Europe is that if for people who want to get off the ship on port days in the short term, you are going to have to book an excursion that is run by the cruise line. So if you're someone like myself who's been to many of the various ports in the Caribbean where you have your favorite spots that you like to go to, like your favorite little bars, your favorite little places to shop, your favorite little tourist attractions. In the meantime, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to take an excursion that is run by the cruise line, or you will have to stay on the ship. Now, um, I do expect because of this, because people do have their favorite little things they like to do, you're going to see more excursions that include these type of things like bar hopping excursions or more excursions to local beaches, more to the downtown shopping areas. I expect the cruise lines to work out with the excursion companies to have these type of excursions because people are not going to be booking a cruise if you limit what they can and cannot do when they're in port, even if it's just for the short term. People are not going to book a cruise if they have to stay on the ship if they can't go to their favorite places in the port. They'll just literally get on a plane and travel there by themselves, like a place like San Juan, Puerto Rico, which I particularly love. And I love to walk around Old San Juan. I have a few shops I like to go to. I have a couple of local bars I like to go to. I like to go to the forts there. So for someone like myself, I wouldn't necessarily get off the ship in San Juan, Puerto Rico, or take a cruise that stops in San Juan for that reason. Would just book a flight to San Juan and stay in Old San Juan for a few days rather than go on a cruise for that reason. So, like I said, this is only temporary. It's all depending on the vaccine and how quickly they can get distributed. Because once there is a vaccine, there is no excuse for things to stay this way. Things will get back to normal. Okay. The third temporary change is leading up to having a vaccine, and when you do check in for a cruise, when you get to the port embarkation day and show documentation that you have gotten the COVID vaccine, so you're good to go. You're probably, I'm gonna say this is gonna be within 28 to 48 hours of the cruise departing. You're gonna have to take and get a negative COVID test to present at check-in on embarkation day, and other because the cruise lines just, they're not going to let you sail if you can't prove that you're negative for the virus at the time of boarding the cruise. It's just not going to happen. They're going to take all the customers' safety and the cruise staff safety in account, that if you can't prove you're negative for the virus, they're not going to let you sail. So that's something you're going to have to consider when booking a cruise. If you're, say you live in, I'm just going to use this as an example, in Colorado, but you're cruising out of Miami, you're going to have to fly in a day or two before the cruise, find a place in Miami that does the COVID-19 test, take the test the day before the cruise, and show that it came out negative. Okay, good. That's something people are going to have to do in the short term when they want to go on a cruise on embarkation day, until, like I said, there's a vaccine. Once the vaccine becomes available, just get it. I'm not trying to say what you should or should not do, but if you want to go on a cruise and you don't want to have any problems whatsoever where you're running around trying to get a negative, take a COVID test and show negative documentation, even if you're not a if you're an anti-vaxxer, just get the vaccine if you want to cruise. Otherwise, don't book one at all, because this is something you're going to have to do in the short term. Either get a negative COVID test to present at, or should I say, take a test for COVID-19 and show a negative result at the embarkation point on departure day, or you're going to have to just get the vaccine and show documentation that you got the vaccine and you're good to go. So there's no at risk of you getting it or spreading it throughout the cruise. Um, I know that sounds harsh, but it's something people are going to have to do. Um, one of the last temporary changes actually I have two more temporary changes, is on, as you know, some cruise lines have check-in appointments. Carnival is widely known for this. If you take a Carnival cruise, when you do your online check-in, they offer you an appointment for check-in time on embarkation day, at what time to show up at the port. So not everyone's waiting outside to check in all at once. This is probably not going to apply to people who have diamond and platinum status on Carnival, or the higher statuses, the top two-tier statuses on other cruise lines who are used to priority check-in. This is probably not going to apply to you. I can't speak to what other cruise lines other than Carnival and NCL are going to do, but my best opinion that these cruise lines are going to keep it the way it is, where priorities check-in is separate, and when you do choose a check-in appointment time, that's just for the sake of checking in online. But with the priority, you can show up to the port, the cruise port terminal, whenever you want to on embarkation day. But for the people who do not have the priority check-in, you're gonna have to go by your check-in appointment. They're going to be really strict about this. So I would check in online the day as soon as it becomes available, so you can get some of that earlier check-in appointment times. Otherwise, you're going to be getting to the port later, and you're going to be boarding a cruise ship later. And everyone does like to be one of the first people on board the cruise ship. So that's something you're going to have to take into account, is to check in online right away and take into account what time your check-in appointment is, because they are not going to let people show up early anymore to get on board the ship earlier. It's just in the near future, it's not going to happen. So take that into account when it comes into check-in appointment times. The last temporary change I have here is I have a feeling, now I can't guarantee it, or it's just one of my feelings, is that on cruise lines like Carnival, Royal Caribbean, MSC, and I'm not sure what they call them on the other cruise lines, but what they call it on the Carnival, anytime dining, I have a feeling it might disappear in the short term, because with the exception of the new ship, the Carnival Mardi Gras, they do not have a lot of dining options outside the two main dining rooms. They have two specialty restaurants and the 24-hour pizza and the Lido buffet on Lido deck. So I cannot see anytime dining continuing right away in the short term if they're going to try and social distance the tables, limit how many people can get dinner at one time, and how many people can be at a table. I think you're just going to see the old traditional time style dining for in the near future. I can't. That's just an opinion of mine. I could be wrong. I probably am wrong on it, but that's just going to be one of my opinions, because it's not like NCL where they have the freestyle dining, where they have the three main dining rooms, but they have all the different specialty dining options where it's really a non-issue. They've done freestyle dining to such an art. This will be a non-issue for them when they start cruising again, because there are so many different dining options on an NCL ship. Um, you really won't have to worry about that with the main dining room. Now, as far as the permanent changes go, I only have two to talk about. One of them is, I'm sure you've heard about, the temperature checks on embarkation date. Now, that this is something the cruise line should have been doing for years. They're finally going to start doing it now, because the last thing you want is any sick person to be on a cruise ship, even if it's just a little cold, because we all know how that can spread among a cruise ship. So a little cold or a little something, the tiniest little thing, we all know how it can get half the ship sick because you think it's just your allergies or something. So temperature checks on embarkation day, those are going to be here to stay. It's something you're going to have to get used to, and it's going to give you more of a to get to the cruise port just a little bit earlier, because checking in for the cruise on embarkation day is going to take just a little bit longer now between that and security checks. Also, the temperature checks, it's not going to be everywhere you go on the cruise ship all the time permanently, but it is going to be when you get off the ship on port days, when you get back on the ship. I have a feeling that they are going to still be taking your temperature for a very long time, if not permanent. That's something I just feel is still going to be around. Excuse me, bad allergy day with the weather here in New York. The second permanent change, and the only other permanent change I have, is that you're still going to see the buffets on cruise ships, but the buffets, they are no longer going to be self-service. You're going to have to be served at the buffets, like you're served at the restaurants, or you're served at the burger place, or the one of the specialty places like barbecue, pizza. They're going to be serving you at the buffets. So the buffets are going to take a little longer than they used to get your lunch, but it's for all safety purposes. Actually, this is something NCL started doing right before the pandemic became full blown here in the States. My friend and I were on the NCL Encore back in February, Super Bowl weekend, and the first few days of the cruise, NCL, the buffets were not self-service. They actually, first few days of the cruise, the the buffet staff was serving all the guests on board the ship. So that's something NCL started doing before even anyone thought it would be required. So that's something I expect to see from now on, that the buffets you are going to have to be served at the buffet, and it's going to take a little while longer, so you're going to have to have a little bit more patience at the buffet. So, in conclusion, as I said, these are some of the changes you can expect for just temporary, and these are some of the changes you can expect to be permanent. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in now, and unfortunately, we're just going to have to make the best of it. thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Hopefully, I'll be back soon with a return to cruising video. And everyone, if I don't get to see you before then, talk to you before then, have a happy Thanksgiving.